Utah politics.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. We do begin this morning with local advocacy group Voices for Utah Children. Mo Hickey here to discuss the top legislative priorities of that organization. Mo, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Glenn.
Important work you do advocating for Utah children. Let's get right into the legislative session now, just days away. One of the top things you will be pushing for is an investment in the child care sector. First off, talk about the need for that right now.
Well, childcare in Utah, we've really struggled over, even pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, and we're one of the last states. We have the largest childcare deserts in the country. Access and affordability have just gotten more demanding over the past number of years. So we're really concerned about when the federal funding for childcare and childcare subsidies runs out, which it will at some point in the coming year. Then we're really concerned about, will people be able to stay open? Will they be able to provide access for people with affordable costs? So, you know, we'll be advocating for things like last year we had a bonus for childcare employees. So maybe the state could pick that up again for another year using some of the ESSER funds that are still remaining. Looking at alleviating some of the costs, for example, if you have to do CPR training or licensing or registering for your child care center, maybe we could waive those costs in the coming year. But we really have to develop a long-term plan for how we're going to address child care moving forward coming out of this session.
And talk about child care as a barrier. When a parent can't afford that, how does that in turn impact their lives?
Well, number one, it's the economy. So we've heard of the pink recession. One of the main reasons that women in particular are not being able to go back to work in Utah is because they're weighing the cost of childcare versus what they're earning in a job. And we've seen a dramatic shift over, say, the past 10 years in Utah. We were a state where the minority of families had both people in the workforce. It was around in the high 30% about 8 years ago. And now we're over 70% where parents of young children, both of them are in the workforce. So now you're looking at juggling schedules, moving children around, and quite honestly, where we're sitting right now, it's about $11,000 a year for childcare for a 0 to 3-year-old. So if you have 2 children, you're looking at that and saying, okay, that's after tax.
Right. How
much do I have to earn just to break even on the childcare, not the cost of commuting and all those other things? So that's a big impact. It's an impact on continuing to build our economy, continuing to allow it to grow. Mm-hmm. The other thing is we've seen a number of reports coming out. The Gardner Institute just released a report that they're projecting lower population moving forward of young children. That's a concern for a state like Utah, which quite honestly is a homegrown state in terms of a lot of the people that stay here, work here, and remain here. So that's
and a lot of that, you have to say, is due to affordability issues.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I've spoken to a number of people that are in the 20 to 25-year-old range and talked to them about, you know, are they planning to have a family? Mm-hmm. We're hearing more and more people talk about deferring having a family until they're a little bit more stable, where that was not the case in the past. So a lot of concerns coming out of that sector.
Another thing you are keeping a close eye on is the State Indian Child Welfare Act. This has implications federally with the Supreme Court, but you want to take a look at it locally here in the state of Utah.
Yes. So if the Supreme Court, we're hopeful they're going to rule in a positive way, so they keep it's called ICWA, that's the acronym for it, that it stays in place. If it doesn't, though, us and a number of states are looking at having our own state ICWA policy so that children will be able to stay with family, we refer to as kinship care if it's not immediate family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, somebody that's in their tribal nation that will be able to keep the children where they belong.
A couple of issues you've been working on for several years are back again this year. Let's start with full day kindergarten. Representative Waldrop picked that up last year. He's gone now. First off, talk about why you believe that's necessary.
Well, number one, we're seeing more and more research show, as a matter of fact, recent research has shown that the brain starts changing at birth. There was a belief over time that it was, you know, around 6 years old, then it got lowered down, and a lot of the research was showing, you know, is it 3 years old? But most recent research is showing the brain starts changing at birth. So by the time children are in kindergarten, we're already behind, and we're falling behind if we're not providing adequate services. So Utah is one of the states where we have had optional kindergarten over the past couple of years. Prior to that, we had no requirement for kindergarten. And we really feel it's such a strong foundational piece for the child as they get ready to enter into our education system. So we, based on feedback from community members, from superintendents, from principals in elementary schools, there's a real demand for this. The problem is that it hasn't been funded as part of our K-12 system, which is somewhat ironic. We have a K-12 system, but we fund 1 through 12, and then we have this lingering piece that we're trying to figure out how to fund. So what we've done the past few years is we've had grant-type funding for kindergarten programs that schools want to expand. What we're hoping this year is to just have it become a piece of our regular K-12 system with WPU funding. That takes away all the arguments. If there's a demand, for example, in Park City School District where I live, to go to kindergarten, then it would be funded with the full WPU. And then we can adjust accordingly.
That also could potentially impact the child care issue that we're talking about as well, when a parent can send their child to full-day kindergarten.
It's actually very much a piece of it, absolutely.
Okay. Healthcare eligibility for 100% of the child population. What is in the works there?
What we're hoping to accomplish is 2 things. One is to get funding for outreach. So on any given year, we have about 80,000 children that are not insured. The vast majority of those are eligible for CHIP or Medicaid. So we want to make sure that we're doing proper outreach, proper education for parents, what they're eligible for and what their children are eligible for. And we've got a lot of support for that. And then the balance of the children, for whatever reason, that don't qualify for CHIP or Medicaid, which is about 10% on any given year, we want to make sure that there's funding available so that we can provide a private product of some kind, probably through one of the local health insurance companies, to make sure that they have access to health insurance from birth. Now, Medicaid has also added a great piece this year, we think, which is they would have a minimum 1-year coverage, whereas in the past in Utah, it's based on your parents' income. So you could, if they took an extra shift this month or got a bonus this month, the child could lose health insurance for the following month. And that's detrimental to good health care. If you don't know you're going to have it, you might not start a procedure. So we want to make sure that it's, and the federal government has stepped in on that one. So Medicaid will have continuous annual coverage this year. So we're really focused on making sure that there's an insurance product so that children can get the help, services they need.
Okay, and that one is being run by the majority leader in the House and the minority leader in the Senate. So we will keep an eye on that and all the other issues that you are watching. We really appreciate you being here and giving us a preview this morning. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Still to come, more on the legislative session. Utah House leaders from both